Welcome to 247 Real Talk. It's a pleasure to be here with you once again. I'm your host, Julian Perry. It's Thursday, April 13th, almost 9 p.m. And once again, I'm honored to be here to share my perspective with you. On this episode, I'm going to talk about something that I think has brought extreme shame to our nation in 2023. So sit back, relax, grab your beverage, grab your coffee if you're listening to this on the way to work, whatever you're doing, and I'll be right back. So welcome back to the 247 Real Talk podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Julian Perry. It's a pleasure to be here with you for another episode. And on this episode, I'm going to talk about what I consider the shame in our nation. Something that got me pretty angry when it occurred. If you can't guess by now, I'm talking about the Tennessee House of Representatives. The actions that they took and the lack of response that I feel the nation should have shown in support of what is right and against what's wrong. I think about the journey of people of color in this country, around the world, but we're talking about this country, about the fights that we've had, about the lives lost, the blood that was shed, the civil rights leaders who were executed, who were when I say executed, murdered. And you think that in 2023, we've finally come to a place where we can sort of stand up and say, we are the benchmark for the rest of the world where democracy is concerned. We have made the most progress, but I'm ashamed. As much as I love America, I have to bow my head at this moment in our history. So most of you probably heard what happened in the Tennessee House of Representatives. For those who did not, I'm not going to go into all the details because my short perspective tonight is more about all the other things that surround it. So basically, there was a shooting in Nashville. Children were shot. There's a gun control debate in this country. I've spoken about that on other episodes where I have a completely different perspective from most people because I understand what both sides are trying to do, and I believe that they need to meet in the middle and not trample on anyone's rights, but also understand each side's needs. But I won't get into that because that's going to really take the conversation in a different direction. But as a result of that, we have three representatives from the Tennessee House of Representatives who protested peacefully. And apparently, part of the rules of the Tennessee House of Representatives is there's a decorum rule which they broke. So let me get the names right. Justin Johnson, Representative Justin Johnson, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson. The three people who stood in this peaceful protest were the House Representatives, which is a supermajority, not just Republican, but white. And there's a reason I'm brought those two together in a moment, and you'll see why. They decided to hold a vote to expel these three individuals. Now, let's stop right there, because from what I've read, expelling someone is a serious thing. Expelling someone requires a certain amount of, or should have a certain amount of investigation. It's something that is extreme when someone's committed an act that is so egregious that no other forms of punishment really work within the confines of the House of Representatives. And so what happened here is the vote was held, and Representative Justin Johnson, Representative Justin Pearson. Let me make sure I got his name right. I have it here. So let me correct that. Representative Justin Jones and Representative Justin Pearson, they have the same first name, were expelled. The third representative, Gloria Johnson, was not. And what came out in the news was, well, they couldn't get enough votes to expel her. Now, stop. 3 people go into a grocery store. 3 people pick up a bar of soap each without paying for it. 3 people walk out of the store, all having stolen a bar of soap. The police catch them and have to make a determination as to who to arrest. It turns out those 3 people who committed the exact same crime are not the same all around. 2 are people of color and 1 is white. So the police decided to arrest the 2 people of color, 2 black men, and let the white woman go. That is what happened in Tennessee. 2, Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, were expelled. And Gloria Johnson, they said they couldn't get enough votes to expel her. The only difference, there's only 2 differences between Gloria Johnson and the 2 black gentlemen, the 2 black representatives. That is, she's a woman and she's white. Now, what's amazing here is she has called, this is the white woman, Gloria Johnson, has called what the Tennessee House of Representatives did racist. And in the middle of all my anger here, I noted that because I believe I've met enough people to know, especially Generation Z, the generation that's coming now. I've met enough people of color. I've met enough white people to understand that we can learn something from them. They marry, interracial marriages, hang out, friends. They protested for George Floyd together, all races, creeds, and colors. And there's something very hopeful about that because they are seeing that there should not be a difference in color. And the fact that Gloria Johnson called this racist, I want to believe that she really believes that. And that gives me hope that even in Tennessee, you can find enough people of color and of all ethnicities who do not make decisions based on race. I think every single person who voted to expel these 3 should be expelled themselves. I think Tennessee, if it wants to get to a place where it's part of the democracy as we know it, even though, that's a whole different debate, they need to show that they can put people in the legislature who are there making laws and rules for all people. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not a problem that's isolated to Tennessee. This is a problem that has occurred in America in a major way over the last few years. This is a problem that reared its ugly head. I'm sorry for those of you who feel differently. You have your opinion. I have mine. This obviously existed continuously, especially in the older generations. But when we had President Trump come into office and not condemn it and actually support it in many ways, people felt empowered to talk about race supremacy. I often wonder, for the people who believe that they have they're supreme over others because of the color of their skin. And I'm going to pause there because I've met many who feel that way and they lack a certain level of intelligence in a certain way, and I'm sorry. And they probably lack it not because they're not capable, but because they've conditioned themselves into a space of hatred, a space that can only accept certain, I won't even say facts, but certain information to make them legitimate. When you think about 2 people who get killed in a car crash, a person of color and a white person, and they're both lying on the slab at the morgue. Let's say hypothetically, in some miraculous way, the injuries were identical. then the only thing that separates those two people lying there void of life is the complexion of their skin. If you looked at those two bodies lying there, would you see one being or one having supremacy over the other? It is ridiculous that in 2023, we are still dealing with people who have a mindset that they're better because they're white or they're light-skinned enough. We live in a country that is a melting pot of immigrants. I got news for America and white America. We celebrate many different ethnicities and we have many different parades for different ethnicities throughout the year. But most of you are not white. You may look white. But if you dig deep enough into your ancestry, you'll find out how mixed you are. You'll find out that even the fallacy or even the premise that you stand on is a fallacy. What is it that makes you determine that because you are born into a certain color that you automatically have supremacy over another human being who does exactly what you do except they're a different color? What is it makes you decide that you can earn more, that you can have access to more? I mean, this is across our nation. Understand how deep this goes and why I feel the need to bring this up, because I've seen the situations firsthand of, even for instance in the real estate market. I've seen mortgages for white people and mortgages for people of color, and then in the middle of there's also a sort of group for rich people of any color. And I've seen where people have gotten pre-approved for mortgages to a certain with a certain income that exceeds someone else of a different color. So a black person with making $200,000 a year with good credit is getting approved for much less of a mortgage than a white person who's making $120,000 a year. And so because of that limits what they can buy unless they have a ton of cash on hand, right? And so they're automatically steered without even recognizing it into certain neighborhoods to create that continued separation of color. Generation Z, a generation of our kids today, make us look foolish. We who's supposed to teach the new generation need to be quiet, sit down, and learn from them. I don't know how you feel about this, regardless of whether you're Republican, Democrat, black, white, green, blue, purple. You've got to be tired of this. We've got so many more things to work together to achieve in this country and in this world. We've had things like the pandemic that took, over 1 million lives in the United States alone? It took over, I think, almost 42,000 lives in New York State alone. We have the fight against disease. We have the fight against, the ear, the climate control, whether you believe in that or not. We have so many other things. We have poverty, homelessness. We've got so many other things that we need to deal with to make sure that each of us has a good life, because when we're strong, united, then we're strong as a nation. Whenever we have a president giving the State of the Union address, they always say at some point, America, the State of the Union is strong. I wonder what they're using to judge the state of our union. Truly, can they say that we've gotten to a point where we recognize our own foolishness and understand that no matter the color of the person next to us, there may be a lot of things different about us, but there's no supremacy? Have we gotten to the point where we understand that because of that same supremacy, that same ideology of whites over the rest, is what caused people of color to still be in a struggle today? If we are born together from the beginning and we grow together, then I have the option of accepting opportunities just as you, regardless of the color of our skin. And you happen to get further along than I do. The difference is not that great. But if we're born into a situation where you are my master and I'm your servant, where I'm your servant involuntarily, where I'm chained and whipped to do the work that makes you wealthy and rich, then that is the same as us waking up in a house full of cockroaches and stomping them. That's the same as us minding cattle and livestock to feed ourselves. Except this is another human being that we've treated this way. And here we are again as a nation that's supposed to be the picture of democracy to the rest of the world. And we have something that happened like just happened in the Tennessee House of Representatives. And before I get to what occurred in the last couple of days to sort of not rectify the situation, but to put a foot forward, I've got to talk about the fact that I'm still searching the channels on TV for the outrage. Where is the outrage from the leaders in Washington, D.C.? Where is their outrage from every single state in the United States of America? Where is the outrage from our president down, who are not going to accept this? Where is the outrage from the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy? Where is the outrage from Chuck Schumer? And I'm calling it both sides of the odds. I don't care, because if you said something to condemn it and I missed it, I still don't care. I don't care because whatever you said means nothing, because it wasn't forceful and it wasn't loud enough. The George Floyd protests were forceful and loud. They continued for night after night after night across this entire age, this entire nation, till law enforcement, till prosecutors, till everyone else had to take notice. They had no choice. What happened in the Tennessee House of Representatives is another example when this nation needs to stand united, turn our heads towards Tennessee, and let them know, not only have we seen what you did, but we will not accept what you did. That we'll use every single thing within our power to make sure that we change that situation so it never happens again, not only in Tennessee, but we will use Tennessee as an example to tell any other state in this country, you can work within your rules, but you better not be doing so on the premise or on the back of racism. It is so blatant. How could you possibly not expel all three, first of all? Okay. We still get into the fact that they shouldn't have been expelled at all. I mean, these are people who are elected by constituents, right? So for you to expel them because I did a silent protest, isn't a silent protest democracy? When you talk about decorum and them violating it, that's a great line, right? Because they did so in peaceful protest. We have learned throughout our history that when you disagree with something and when you feel strongly about it, you should protest peacefully. It is your right. So even though they're talking about decorum because they're representatives in the Tennessee House of Representatives, what they did was within their rights as a human being at the same time. This country teaches in one of its lessons, whether it's a sincere lesson or not, it teaches that you should protest when you believe strongly, peacefully, but protest and make your voice heard and make your position known. And all those who agree with you will protest with you. And here we are in a peaceful protest for something that, is a different conversation again, but it is a serious problem regardless of what side you're on in terms of what's happening in our nations with shootings. And you expel them for that. Something that, I'm sorry, no legal scholar have read their opinions online believes or agrees with the level of response from the Tennessee House of Representatives. And then on top of that, to add injury to insult, you expel the two people of color and you say you cannot come up with enough votes to expel the third person who's white for the exact same thing. If that is not blatant racism, if that is not a reason that the entire Tennessee House of Representatives, those who voted, should be expelled because the crime, racism is a crime because it is against human beings as far as I'm concerned. The crime and the offense that they have committed is far more egregious than the one they voted against. We cannot talk about a great country if we can't get our own business in order. We cannot tell the rest of the world to follow us, to tell the rest of the world that we are leaders, if within our own confines we treat other human beings like dirt. And then what happens? To make the situation even more, I don't know what adjective to use, because the result was sort of fairness, but in a way that I don't think is right. In the sense that, so both bodies that were able to voted to send both Justin Jones and Justin Pearson right back where they came from. And they were sworn in and they're right back in the House of Representatives. And they both, said they're going to run in the special election. But the point is, it should have been more than that. I applaud those who voted to put them back there. But that by itself, while it's all righteous, is just not enough. This nation needs to tell Tennessee House of Representatives, you were blatantly racist, and as Americans, black, white, green, blue, purple, yellow, we will not tolerate it. Look, if you want to be racist in your own home, behind your own four doors where nobody can hear you or see you, that's your business. But when you stand as an American, you stand united. We stand as one, as Americans. Not white people, not black people, not blue people, not yellow people, not green people, but as Americans. And as human beings. And for those of us who believe, as equal children of God. I'm waiting to see, because as I turn my head here, I'm reading that someone has asked the Department of Justice to investigate what happened. And I'm happy to see that, and I think that what happened was criminal, and I think that persons need to be held accountable for what happened here. The problem with justice in this country, too, is apart from all the other issues with it, everything takes so long. I don't know what the entire environment looks like. I'm not a judge or a lawyer or anything, but I just don't understand why it takes so long. We talk about right to a speedy trial or whatever. The investigations in this country take years. And I don't understand. I mean, sometimes they end up going nowhere because they go from one administration to the next, and they go from Democrat to Republican or Republican to Democrat, and you never achieve what you set out to achieve. Why does it take so long? What do they need to do that takes years? Especially this blatant. I'm sure they can get a record of who voted and why they voted. And I'm sure they can get a record of the people who voted not to expel the white woman, but to expel the two black men for the same crime. I want to hear them explain that. This reminds me of something I've spoken about a couple of times in this podcast. And that was when the federal government, or the law was changed, let me get this right, to make lynching a federal crime, federal hate crime. And in the House of Representatives and in the United States Senate, the vote for it was unanimous except for three members of the House of Representatives. And I forgot what states were they from. And I hate to say this because I'm trying to keep a middle perspective there. But yes, they were all white. And they were never held accountable to explain why they were the only three that voted that lynching, you have to be some heck of a time of human being to vote against lynching another human being being a federal hate crime. And guess what? You hear me talking about it. You can go Google it and research it, and you'll see the three people from the states that, I forgot again, I don't want to erroneously quote the states. But where was the uproar? Why didn't the rest of the members of the House and the Senate vote to expel those three? Because if you're going to vote against lynching becoming a federal hate crime, you need to explain yourself in detail. And if your explanation is not acceptable enough, you need to be removed because you're just not competent, you're just not fair enough, and you may just be a racist who cannot be trusted to stand on the side of the people. So I don't want to go on and on about this because I know that it's a subject that's not only touchy, but I know that you've probably been saturated with it this week if you've paid attention. But for those of you who are now hearing about it, go look it up, go Google it, go see what it is. And however and whatever way you can make a difference, you need to make a difference. You need to be heard. You need to find forums. You need to find groups that are taking signatures and petitions to against this, to raise this to certain levels, to bring those who made this happen accountable, and to make sure it never happens in this great nation of ours again. Making America great again should not be a slogan for a campaign. Making America great should be the commitment of each and every one of us who live in this country. And I think that you take away the again and you just say make America great. Because for those of us and for I'm back. I'm sorry. We had a power failure in the studio. Not sure what happened. I have to check to see what happened with the backup power. But anyway, I'm back and I was almost done. So basically, as I was saying, for those of us who believe that this should be a change in this country, we need to stand up and make a difference now. We can no longer tolerate what has happened. I was saying before that making America is making America great. For many of us who have fought this battle to get to where we are today, still far behind many others in society, people of color, far behind everyone else in society, because they started at such a disadvantage. We are still fighting to make America great. Hopefully the day will come when we reach that goal. And then we want to start over again because it's been such a successful journey that we can then say, make America great again. Again, I apologize for the break near the end there. Like I said, we had a power failure in the studio. But I do thank you for listening. I do thank you for your continued support. A couple of episodes ago, I had an episode, I recorded an episode on homelessness, and the response has been amazing. And before I go off of this episode, I wanted to say that this afternoon on my way home from work, I was listening to 1010 Winds in New York. Actually, no, I wasn't listening. I actually did hear it there, but I also read it. So both places. That currently the median rent in Manhattan in New York City for, I believe, is a one-bedroom apartment is $4,175 a month. I'm actually not sure if that's a studio or one bedroom, but that's how expensive it is to live in Manhattan. So the fact that we have our mayor and his homelessness plan to convert unused office space into housing this is just another reason why it's so needed. But I don't want to take away from what this episode was about tonight, and I urge you to, like I said, if you haven't heard of it, if you haven't taken the time to look into it, to learn what happened, then do so. We need this change. It has to be permanent. We can fight about differences in opinion and ideology. There's nothing wrong with being Republican or Democrat and what you believe in. But giving superiority and supremacy to someone because of the color of their skin is unacceptable. It's unacceptable as human beings, and I'm certainly sure it's unacceptable to our Creator. I thank you so much for another week to be here with you. It's been an honor and a privilege. I wish you a safe weekend and a safe week ahead. I know in New York we've had a few days, and I think up till tomorrow we'll probably be close to 85 degrees. Enjoy the weather. Be good. Be safe. And most of all, take care of yourselves and each other.